And they're tying it all in together. So if you own a Vin home, you got your Vin charger with your Vin car, you get discounts to go to Vin Wonders. They're like promoting it. It's a Vin lifestyle. It's like a McLifestyle. If McDonald's like created an entire universe, it would be like this.
Welcome to the Autopian Podcast. I'm David Tracy, coming to you from Dubbo, New South Wales in Australia. We've got Beau Bachman somewhere in Southeast Asia and Jason Torchinsky in the exotic land of North Carolina. Right away, I'll just say, subscribe to our podcast, the Autopian Podcast, the ultimate car podcast for the ultimate car website, theautopian.com.
Absolutely. Please subscribe.
I think this is a miracle of modern technology, and do we have a guest from Africa or anywhere else that we could pull him in from?
Well, we need to triangulate like the most remote, like relative to the three of us, the person who's the farthest away from all of us.
Yes,
and then bring him on.
Where would that be?
Vietnam, LA,
North Carolina,
New York. North Carolina.
I don't know, but I do know that we got to talk about where we all are and and why, because we're all here for car related reasons. Torch, you could argue.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I'm here to fix up a Chrysler Valiant Ute.
Yeah.
Basically, if you asked me what the point of it was, I would it's a challenge. It's
masochism.
It's these Utes, they're car-based pickup trucks. We never got them in the US. And
we had El Caminos and Rancheros.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You're right. You know what? You're right. We did have a couple of small car-based, and now we've got the Ford Maverick and we've got the Hyundai Santa Cruz.
The Subaru Brat might have counted back in the day too.
You know what?
Yeah, we had some. You didn't take off like that. Yeah,
I always thought the Brat was so cool because they had the handles. You could be in the
seats,
pickup bed.
the chicken tack seats in the back.
Oh.
So good. I'm gonna get one. I'm gonna review.
Want to ride in those. That's like impossible to get away with today. Oh,
no one would do it. There's no seats.
Does anyone have a Brat? That's what we got to find out.
I have a lead on a
Brat in Australia. It's
a Brat.
It's called the Brumby, and I drove one. And it was a special edition that was sold at a farm show. They made like 1,000 and sold them at the farm shows. You had to, anyway, it doesn't matter.
Wow.
Anyway, these Utes are great. And I don't really know why they didn't really pick up in the US, because the reason why they like them here in Australia is because you get utility. There are a lot of farmers out here. It's a huge country, not unlike the US. But you can take your pigs to market on, Saturday or Friday or whatever, and then go to church on Sunday, they say. So it's like, it's a good ride and there's still utility. Anyway, I bought one of these.
Basically, that's what a Maverick is today, though, if you think about it.
Yeah, it's true.
You can take your pigs to church. It took us
long enough.
Your Maverick.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah, it took us a long time to really warm up to the whole, unibody truck thing. But
I still want them to find us a Brat, though. And just for those who've never seen it, you got a single cab and a little truck, and there were two seats with no seatbelt or anything.
Facing backwards. So the back of you is up against the rear window of the truck, and they're like rubber seats, and they have two handles that are like BMX bike rubber grips on either side. No seat belts.
No seat, just hang on for dear effing life.
And Beau, you know why, right? You know why they did those? Because it was the chicken tax. They had to be able to say it was a passenger vehicle and not a truck. So they say, no, clearly this is a 4-passenger car. There's 2 seats in the back for your kids. And that was it's all ridiculous chicken tax stuff. Anyway, go ahead, David.
Were there really no seatbelts in those in the back?
No, there's just gripper handles.
This is the 70s, my friend. You weren't born yet, but we didn't care about safety or children back then.
Life was cheap, David.
Yes.
Lord.
Parents didn't love their kids until like 1990. So it was easy.
Oh, they loved us. They just didn't care who we were or what we did or if we lived.
Anyway, I'm not going to give too much of an update on my build. It started from a shell with no engine, no transmission, and frankly, nothing. No windshield, missing a door, whatever. and it's been a grind. You'll have to follow on the Autopian.com or our YouTube channel. Beau, what's going on in Southeast Asia? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, why are you there?
So I was invited on, let's just say, one of the most unusual trips of my life. I was invited to visit the VinFast factory, drive the new VinFast VF8, and check out the VF9, see where they're being built, and really get a tour of the Vin Group, which is the largest company in Vietnam. And VinFast is their car arm. They build hotels, resorts, amusement parks, housing, apartments. I mean, it's a mind-blowing, the size of this company. So it was a tour to kind of show us that this company is serious. They're big. They're coming to America in a big way. They bought property in North Carolina. They're going to be building a facility to bring their electric vehicles there. So Vin Group is and VinFast. They start off building gasoline cars, and now they're pure EVs and coming to America. So I got an invitation, and how could I pass that up? So I got a tour of the Vin Group and everything they're doing, and a little bit of Vietnam and VinFast, and I can kind of give you an update before I give my little story.
And you've driven this car, right? So is this the one you drove, the VF9?
This is the VF9. So this is the larger 7-passenger that's coming, I don't know, maybe a year after or so. And again, this is where you can buy or lease the vehicle, and then you lease the battery, which is kind of a unique selling proposition.
We've written about that, actually.
Well, I'm sorry?
We actually wrote an article about that, kind of going back and forth in this battery leasing thing, because it's an interesting idea that I think has some merit, although I don't know if they're executing it exactly like I'd want, but there's something there, I think.
It does have merit. And, they talk about recycling the batteries afterwards and using them for, storage purposes and battery fields and things like that, which does make sense for battery recycling and those types of deals. So it does make sense. Whether American buyers dig that or not, remains to be seen. It's a unique thought, but, we'll see.
Can you say what you thought of the car, or did they make you sign anything, or can you talk about it?
Well, they actually, it was this, you want me to tell you about how I got there a little bit?
Yeah, do it.
It's kind of interesting. So I get this invitation to this Vin Group, and it's through actually a mutual friend. So strangely, I didn't go as an automotive journalist. I didn't go as an automotive dealer. I kind of went as a fly on the wall to check this all out. So you get this invitation. It's a private charter to Vietnam to, first of all, the focus is to visit VinFast and drive the VF8, but also to see kind of the scope of Vin Group, see who they are as a company, because they're the largest company in Vietnam, and kind of get an idea of who they are, because they're going full bore to bring this car to America, and they're already open, I think, 6 showrooms in California. So, I mean, they're coming in strong. So I get over, and the first thing we do is we get to this amazing resort, which is a Vin resort. By the way, it's like McDonald's, right? So everything, instead of Mick, like Mick Play Place and everything, is Vin. So this is like a Vin resort, and everything's Vin. So this is like
feels like a Disney-owned GM, kind of, maybe.
That is a really interesting way of putting it. Yes, it's like there definitely is a Walt Disney-esque element to things, but they're also home builders. They're building schools. They built a university that I visited. They're building, so we visited these places, and you've seen these kind of ghost cities in China.
Yeah.
So we visited. Now they're ghosts because they're not finished yet, but literally tens of thousands of apartment buildings being built all at once. So we would go and so we stayed at this little resort island, which they own, of course, this beautiful resort. So they're just getting us acclimated the first night. And then we go visit like these cities that they're building. And we go to these, it's a full-on lake that they built with seawater and sand from beaches with thousands, tens of thousands, probably, I don't even know how many apartment buildings and apartments that are being built. with high rises and $1 million homes all on this lake and nobody there.
I don't understand how that
And-
works. How do you
well,
build this
and-
stuff before? Like,
Okay, so there is a logic to it. So they're
Okay.
saying during the pandemic, a lot of people from Hanoi moved out of the city and went back to their home villages. And now they're trying to get people to come back to get back to work. But they don't want everybody moving in the city because the city's too crowded. So what they're doing is they're building suburbs. So these are just outside of Hanoi. And so it does make sense, but they've got to fill them. So they want people to come back, but not move into the city. And they're absolutely beautiful. I mean, I'm talking about parks for children that are huge. I mean, it looks like a beautiful place to, kind of grow up and live. I mean, but it's not there yet. It's just being built. So it's funny because they finished the water parks. Like I visited a full, like raging water park, and we were like the only people there. I mean, it just opened and I almost got knocked over by a wave. I dropped my phone in the water. I thought my whole life was over at a moment. And then they take us to Vin University, which they just opened 2 years ago, and they want to be one of the top 50 private universities in the world in the first few years. Now, again, no students because school doesn't open until next month, so it's like an empty university that we visited, but extremely impressive. And then we finally go to visit the factory, but my mind's being blown because the size of this company is and the variety of what they do is impossible to imagine. So then there's Vin Wonders, which is like a full amusement park, but there's not just one, there's like several. And I'll get to that in a minute as well. So anyway, we just get like blown away with the size and scope of this company. It's the biggest thing I've ever seen. And we don't have a company in America to compare it against. I mean, it must have been like after World War II when we were building like tons of homes and everything like that. It must have been like that combined with Disneyland. Just insane. So, and extremely impressive. So that was kind of
get some urban planners who might be watching this to let us know, is the ideal way to design a city is you build your water parks first and then fill everything in after that. Cause that feels right to me.
Well, I guess it is, they show that it's already there for people to move into because it's beautiful, and very attractive.
Oh yeah. Look at this. Wait, did you see something like this? This Vin Wonders.
Did you see the turtle?
Yes.
The giant turtle.
I did not go to the giant turtle. And actually the last place I was on an island that they own with 5 resorts with this Vin Wonders on it, with its own aquarium, its own zoo, its own like crazy shows and everything. 5
David,
resorts.
the cars were there too. Did you see the cars? If you scroll down, David, they had the actual Vin cars there also. It's like see? So they're promoting that right there too.
And they're tying it all in together. So if you own a Vin home, you got your Vin charger with your Vin car, you get discounts to go to Vin Wonders. They're like promoting it. It's a lifestyle. It's like a McLifestyle. If McDonald's like created an entire universe, it would be like this.
Remember Celebration, Florida? There was that Disney plan community.
Yes. Probably most similar to like Disney World would be the closest thing. And if Disney also built like 100,000 apartments.
Jesus. What were you saying, David?
Yeah. I don't know. This is maybe a parallel that's not quite right, but does this remind you of anything? The whole building a resort and then tying it to cars and giving discounts and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, wait, why is that familiar?
Gives off some KDF.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, yeah, the last time this was tried was the KDF, the Strength Through Joy facility, and the Germans were doing it in World War II. Because you had your KDF wagon, and then there were the KDF resorts, and everything was like together. You're right. That is the darkest possible interpretation, David, but it is kind of close.
I wouldn't put it. It wasn't that dark.
But the idea of like building this sort of utopian world for citizens, and we're going to make the cars, and then you'll have this like resort to go to, and it's
You're right.
Because the whole tagline of Vin Group is I'm gonna mangle it here, but to provide a better life for the Vietnamese. I mean, Then it changed now to promote a better life for people. So now they're venturing from helping just Vietnam to now helping the world through electric vehicles. So that is their motto, and what they're trying to do is improve the lives of the Vietnamese people. And to their credit, it would appear as though that is what they're doing and working and completely investing in. So the money that they earned in their first outing, they're now reinvesting in the country and doing everything they can to promote Vietnam.
So what is it about electric? What is it about electric cars that it sort of allows new players to enter the industry in a way that before, ICE vehicles were? I mean, look, the last major car company that built gasoline cars was what, Chrysler in the US, 1920s? Like all new gasoline, making their own engines and everything. Shit, when would that be? Well, that's the last American.
It was 100 years ago.
It was a long time ago, but now, as the world begins to electrify, we're starting to see all sorts of new entrants into the country. American car companies and foreign car companies, and
the barrier to entry is less. I feel like you can things are more componentized and modular, so it's not like you have to set up an engine foundry to get something started. It's easier to get into it, I think, than it used to be for combustion.
Yeah, and the technology is available out there now, and yes, and people don't have I think they're open to new companies right now and trying new things. I think Tesla obviously have proved that, and they've earned a good reputation in what they've done. So it's the gold rush and the second wave of the car manufacturers. Because I mean, how many hundreds were there around at the dawn of the automobile? And this is the dawn of the electric automobile.
Honda came pretty late, David. I'm trying to think of
they opened in '79, I think, in Ohio, Marysville, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, even Honda, because Honda was motorcycles up until long after World War II, and I think their actual first car, that N6, the 500 and the 360, like those guys didn't come until 60s.
Yeah, because a lot came after World War II, and I'm trying to think. Right, after World War II, when was it? I can't recall.
Yeah, the S500, well, the S360, I guess that was. I mean, it's early '60s for Honda, but they're maybe the most recent for the major ICE cars. That's an interesting question. Anyway.
Yeah.
No, lots of new players. It is exciting. Okay, so that is.
So I toured the VinFast factory, and I have to say, extremely impressive. They were talking about what companies from Germany came over and built them.
Yeah.
But again,
Magna was working with them. Yeah.
Magna, and I forget the other German company. But again, it is incomprehensibly massive. And I took some pictures and videos, so hopefully I'll get a chance to share it. They're probably set up to build 200,000 cars a year initially.
Whoa.
So, I mean, they're starting off, and, maybe 2% of the factory was operational because they're just now building the prototypes. So again, it's like this.
They're selling some already in Europe, right? Like you can buy a Vin, combustion. Not yet. Okay.
Oh, combustion. Yes.
Yeah. You can buy combustion
VinFast cars. And their whole thing was they wanted to build EVs in the beginning, but they didn't know how. So they started building gasoline cars so that they could learn how to build cars and then switch to EVs. So their thought process is right with a lot of things that they've done. And again, extremely impressive with how dedicated they are and working at it. So the factory tour was fascinating. Again, we could take pictures anywhere but the battery technology area. That they took us through it, but we couldn't take pictures. And then we got to do a pretty short test drive. And unfortunately, after going halfway around the world, I was hoping to spend quite a bit of time with it, but it was pretty fast. And they had a track that it went on. And I'll do a write-up on it and let you guys know about the whole experience. But I have to say, I've driven a lot of prototypes. I've driven a lot of cars, before they come out at different stages. And this is the final iteration of the prototype. And the fit and finish was there. I didn't get a chance to really inspect every car, but it had excellent fit and finish. The drive, it was incredibly smooth. Not fast, and that was a little surprising for an EV, because I thought it'd be more power off the line, and hitting it. I'm kind of used to driving a Polestar that's really performance oriented, but it was acceptable. So very acceptable for driving an SUV. It handled well. I mean, it really drove like an OEM car, and that's what I think the most impressive thing was. I mean, I've driven cars. I remember in 09, 10, when they had the other way coming, there were companies like Coda. I don't know if you remember them, but they had a Chinese Mitsubishi EV.
They were sad.
I got there to drive it, and it was like, this is worse than any golf cart I've driven. Like, you got to be kidding me. And of course, they didn't last very long. This was not that. I mean, they are invested, committed. They've got people that are expertise in these fields, and they're going for it. I mean, building the plant in North Carolina. They've got 6 dealerships open in California now. They're doing a direct model sale. So that
plant's going to be right near me. It's just one county over where they're planning to build it, I believe, Chatham County. So we'll be able to go check it out and see what the hell's going on, because I'm very curious. So
they're putting all their chips in, and we'll see if it's something that Americans would enjoy. I think if the price point comes in quite a bit lower, because they're kind of going for that premium segment, and maybe 15, 20 grand less than a BMW or something like that. So, I think they've got something to go on. So there's something real. But the trip just kept getting kind of more unusual and weirder. And again, it's kind of that perspective of what they think American entertainment is, like Disneyland, but their own spin on it that just kind of is just a little bit different from what we're used to. So I'll enjoy sharing some of the pictures and videos from the trip, because some of it just you can't explain in words, because it's just absolutely crazy. So,
oh boy, all right,
wow,
that's why I'm in Vietnam.
That is cool. That is it's a company that's doing cars and resorts. That is pretty absurd. So we got me in Australia. We've got Beau hanging out in Vietnam. What's going on in North Carolina, Torch?
Huge things. Every day is a new triumph, something new and unexpected. That's not 100% true. North Carolina is pretty much just holding fast like always. I'm waiting. Hopefully we'll have new batteries for the Changli. That's one big project we're hoping our battery sponsor Optima, as we've been talking to them about getting some new batteries for the Changli, so we get that going again. I've had a lot of press vehicles that I need to write reviews on. Right now I've got the Volvo, the C40, the EV one. I've had that one. Let's be honest, Storage. What's that?
Let's be honest. Every press vehicle you get is just because you don't have a car that actually runs.
Only partially. My truck does run currently. I put a new tensioner on the truck, so it does run fine. I could drive the truck. It is operational. So it's not just because of that. Partially. Yeah.
Grinding through gears. Okay. All right.
Most of the times I shift, it doesn't grind at all. Like most.
Okay. Well, no. Look, the Changli update is what we really needed.
We're gonna have a big Changli update soon.
All right. So
acids. Yes.
Okay. Let's go through some stories that did well this week on the Autopian. Torch, yours about Kit from Knight Rider.
Yeah.
Which is a show I do know, for the record.
Good. That's amazing.
All right, I learned that Kit from Knight Rider had a rubber shell and there was a VW powered one. What do you mean a rubber shell?
Okay, so this is fast. Okay, so what I like about this is it's one of those ideas that seems so basic and stupid. It shouldn't be real, but it is. Like, so they do a lot of stunts with Kit. Like Kit, the whole point of that show on Knight Rider was that this talking Trans Am ran into shit and did stunts and drove around. They had a
sentient too, right?
It was sentient. It had that dude who was the doctor in St. Elsewhere who did the voice. It was a sentient robot car. So it drove around, talked, and ran into crap. Now,
oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Hold on. Don't get there yet, David. Wait, because that's the second part. So the first part is they all had a limited number of these Trans Ams because they were new at the time, and they only had like 5 of them. So to keep them from getting all beat to hell, they cast a rubber mold of the whole body, and the car wore it like armor. So they would put like 4 or 5 guys would lift this heavy rubber black body, put it right on top of kit of the Trans Am, and then when they run into shit, it would bounce off this rubber body and it wouldn't get all dinged up. So David, scroll down a little bit, and if you're watching Knight Rider ever, look at actually, yeah, if you look at this picture, if you look at the windshield, the times when the windshield pillar looks thicker, like it looks thick and it looks like the windshield is set back, that's when it's wearing its rubber shell. And so in the very beginning, they had a whole body shell and they had a nose. And then Pontiac changed the look of the Trans Am and they updated it. And instead of making a new nose, if you scroll down, David, they just thought, screw it. And in the later ones, you can see it's very obvious. There is no nose part of that shell. Like you can very much tell it's wearing something over it. So that I thought was amazing because it seems like such a basic idea. Let's just cover the car in rubber. And that's literally what they did. Now,
wait, so this gap here between the hood and the nose is because the hood has rubber over it and the nose doesn't?
Right. The nose is like a replaceable, it was a rubber bumper anyway. So I guess it wasn't quite as bad. And there's the shell itself. You can see, what's his name? Hasselhoff sitting there in the shell.
How can you forget David Hasselhoff?
I remember, I almost called him Michael Knight, but David Hasselhoff, he's there in the rubber shell. And so, okay, so that alone, I think is amazing because I've never heard of a rubber shell being placed over a car for anything like this. And then I learned whenever they jumped kit really high or they did a really difficult stunt that was going to really mess up the car, they didn't use a Trans Am at all because the Trans Am was too heavy, too expensive. There weren't enough of them. But Southern California in the 80s, what there were plenty of, that were plenty rugged, were Beetles. They were everywhere. So they took one of these rubber body shells and scroll down a little here, David. And they basically, this is a Beetle Pam. You can see the standard Beetle front suspension. It's just they made like a sandrail style Beetle out of it with a tube frame body. Engine's in the back there. You can see it's got a little snorkel for air intake. It's got Kit's wheels, a massive front overhang thing, and then they just hung one of the rubber bodies on it. And this is the car that they used for like the big jumps, the stunts, anything where it was going to really get worked over. It's just a Beetle under there, which I think is absolutely incredible. I love it.
Now, Torch, you watched Knight Rider growing up, right?
Sure, of course I did. I didn't ruin the appreciation of the finer things. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it like it's probably my favorite show at that time. You know, I watched every episode with bated breath and everything. Did you ever notice anything off about Kit?
No, but I think the reason was TV was crap. Like old CRT TV, low, like regular definition TV with 525 lines, you could get away with so much more. When it's moving on the crap TVs, especially like ours, where we didn't even have cable for a while and you had antennas, you were lucky to see anything, frankly. I think you could just get away with it.
I'll give you a little insider hint or a little insider information. All the cars in these movies for Hollywood are like that. When I did Pimp My Ride, that's when I discovered how forgiving the camera is. You know, they say the camera adds 10 pounds to you, but it is so forgiving on these cars that they build in Hollywood is unbelievable. And the crap that you think you're seeing some beautiful car on the screen, it is usually just a shell and a piece of crap, and you wouldn't believe it. I've been to these studios that build these cars, and we couldn't do it because they're done so poorly. We would be embarrassed. But the camera, for even on a high definition movie, you'd be shocked at how bad the picture vehicles usually are. It's amazing. It's crazy. But it's amazing what your eye will forgive and not notice when you're lost in the fantasy of the show. But these cars are usually just crap.
I mean, when you look at these pictures of the rubber body, it seems obvious that this car something weird is going on. But on an old TV, when it's moving at 30 frames a second,
high def movie, it's the same thing. I'm telling you, if you take a movie with a car in it, freeze frame it, and you'll go, holy shit, look how bad that car is, man. It's unbelievable.
I also remember you watched the Dukes of Hazzard too, I imagine, right?
Of course.
So almost every one of those jumps with their Charger, when the thing lands, it almost always buckles in a way that looks like it is completely destroyed. Like if you pause it, it's like bent, and then they're climbing out of it, and it's just fine. Yeah, but no one gave a shit. It was fine. Yes. Anyway, I thought it was fascinating. I don't think any of those rubber bodies.
I have to say, like, famous car looks like a Trans Am, but is a bug with a fake body. Oh, that's
not just a fake body, a rubber body, which just feels like it makes it even better. I love it.
It is better. Well, you know what? You've written some pretty great stories this past week. One of which is a claim that you only need 50 horsepower to get by in modern traffic.
Yeah. Okay, now I should qualify this a little because I did do some. So the reason I say this is because I've been driving cars with about 50 horsepower for decades. My Beetle, when I was in LA, I drove it all over LA. That thing only made about 50 horsepower. I still have the Beetle, but my main go-to daily driver for years since I've been out here has been my Nissan Pao, which makes 52 horsepower. And it's fine. I have never had a problem where I couldn't do something or get somewhere because I have like a quarter the horsepower of an average car. It just doesn't happen. I can do 70 to 75 on the highway. People talk about they're afraid to merge. It's never been a problem. I've never not been able to merge in a 50 horsepower car. Now, the weight of these cars is low. Both the Beetle and the Pal weigh about 1,800 pounds. So scrolling down in the article, I did do some math and say what that comes out to is about 30 some odd pounds per horsepower. So in a modern car that weighs 2,500, 3,000 pounds, I was saying like 115 or so would get by, which again is tiny compared to today. But the thing, it's not fast, but it's also just not that slow. The 30 pound per horsepower thing, you're fine. It will work just fine. And people who say, look, I'm not saying more horsepower is bad. It's a blast. It's wonderful. But if you're saying you can't get by because your car only has, or you're afraid to merge, that's on you. You absolutely can do it. I just, I believe this to be true.
Okay, I will agree with it in kind in one way, but I do have a couple of questions.
Okay, sure. Yes.
You're in North Carolina. I imagine things are rather flat there. Would that be accurate?
Oh, no, we have hills. And keep in mind, I was in LA almost 20 years driving that.
I was going to get at that.
Okay.
Because like the 405, the hill there, like going, from the valley to LA, like that would be my concern, or the grapevine. So maybe it's not horsepower, but what's the torque that's the minimum to go with it? Because I got to get up that hill. And I've been in a car or two that, I struggled to get up that hill. And that was freaky. So other than the hill, I'll agree with you. But what about that hill?
The grapevine is an unusual case. And I have driven my Beetle in the grapevine. And I do remember struggling to make 50. Like maybe I was at 45. And you're just in the lane with all the trucks for that. But that's an extreme circumstance. You're not on the grapevine all the time. And with that in mind,
in the valley,
I don't ever remember. All those years of driving, I can't think of a time where I felt genuinely like I just can't get where I need to go because of all these hills. There's certainly steep hills even in like the Silver Lake Hills or the Hollywood Hills. There's certainly some of those crazy ass hills that are so steep, you're just not going that fast up them, but you don't really want to because it's a residential neighborhood and they're narrow. It's just never been an issue. That's the thing, is my experience is 50 horsepower in an 1,800 pound car, 30 pounds per horsepower, you're fine. I can't figure out what I've missed out that I couldn't have done.
I think for most driving scenarios, it's probably fine. I mean, this is like having an F-150 Raptor that has 190 horsepower, which, is, that's a 5,700 pound truck.
Right.
Less than 200 horsepower. That would be a little rough, but for most people, it's fine. It's like, the problem is like if you build a car around its extreme use case, which is what automakers do, to certify a car for a certain tow rating, it has to be able to do it. It has to have these certain attributes. The downside to that is most cars are overbuilt for most applications. And people aren't buying 50 horsepower cars. They're just not.
But
they're not even available.
Your engine, when you're not revving it a maximum, whatever, you're not making its maximum power all the time while you're driving, are you? So is it possible that many people are driving around making about this amount of horsepower in just their day-to-day driving anyway?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Like depending upon the vehicle, like you can look at highway cruising horsepower numbers and they're like 20 to 50 horsepower. You can 30 to
my horsepower, man. I'm not a cruiser, I guess.
It's the acceleration really that you'd really miss.
But you're
like if I can't go fast, I want to feel I could go fast at least from 0 at the red light to 60 or whatever the speed limit is. That's my chance to like have a little bit of fun.
I would also argue on a light car with low power, you feel like you're going faster and you feel like you're having
true.
fun. Like
yes, I drove the Mighty Boy, Suzuki Mighty Boy.
Oh yeah,
that thing, it makes like 20 horsepower, but
500 cc's, right? Yeah, but you feel, because it's tiny and light, you feel like you're tearing ass because you're revving high. And
actually, the key to making this work, obviously, besides the low curb weight, is the manual transmission. With an automatic, it doesn't work at all.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because all the cars I've driven 50 horsepower or less have been manuals. I know, and I've driven a POW that has the automatic, and it is a different situation. That's actually a good point. Yeah, an automatic will suck from it. Yeah.
Next story of yours is about how a Ford apparently did all the hard work that led to Chrysler's minivan, the revolutionary.
Yeah, this is a heartbreaker for Ford.
This is an amazing story, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think part of it was well known, and the part I reported on here was something that was new to me. So, all right, so Lee Iacocca was at Ford. He was, of course, father of the Mustang and all this stuff. And one of the other projects was they wanted something called a garageable van, and it was a project called the Ford Carousel, which was to make a small van. This is the part people mostly know about. This was using the same drivetrain as the Econoline. So you had front engine, rear drive. Packaging wise, not necessarily ideal for what would become a minivan. But and then the story usually is, they talks about the Carousel, and then they talk about how Iacocca grabbed his team when he was fired from Ford and went over to Chrysler. And from there, he championed the minivan that became like the Chrysler Voyager, the Dodge Caravan, all of those things that really saved Chrysler's bacon in the 80s. And those were front wheel drive minivans. And the packaging wise, they were great because everything was up front. Everything behind that front wheel was available for flat floor room. What I didn't realize.
Way, can I just note what's being shown here is it's quite a homely vehicle. It kind of reminds me of a bulldog, like this flat face, kind of ugly, but maybe a little bit cute in a weird, ironic way.
It's interesting. So this thing you're pointing out, Beau, is it's called the Mini.
The next one up.
Yeah, the next one. Go up the next one, because keep going one more, because it's okay.
There you go.
So the Mini Max was a project at Ford that came parallel to the Carousel, but a different team, where they were actually using the Fiesta platform from Ford of Germany, transverse front wheel drive package, and they were building these things called Mini Maxes, which was like a little van, so short, stumpy hood, tall, but the basic layout was what went to Chrysler. And this first version that Beau's talking about, let me describe it to you because I think it's amazing. Picture like Mustang 2 style bumpers, stacked headlights. It all feels a little Mustang 2-ish in vocabulary. But Beau, I don't know if you're seeing this. The key to this one is look on the side of that car. What do you see there? There's a graphic that goes all the way across the side. So for you just listening, picture, yes, it's a little squat, small van, but and it's kind of like a deep orange copper. And then in gold is an eagle that has its head right by the front fender and extends all the way back to the entire length of the car, like these stretched out wings. And I think that's fantastic.
You know what else is interesting about this picture? I don't ever think I've seen a concept car with a custom paint job like this before.
That's a good point.
Graphic? That seems so odd.
It does seem, now that you mention, maybe the Firebirds did, but this is a minivan, which is also kind of crazy. And then later versions of it, they got, they made them a little tidier and a little less crazy looking. But fundamentally, what makes this interesting is this is a front wheel drive minivan. They were considering putting him as like a Pinto. And if you look at this picture, David, scroll up a little. So there's a picture of the rear. That floor is flat. There is a ton of room in this little thing. And it's got a tailgate that like folds out into a ramp. Packaging wise, it's great. And packaging wise, it's very close to what Chrysler ended up doing. Chrysler was smart and put a sliding door on the side, which this didn't have. But I'd never seen these before. And I didn't realize just how close to the later Chrysler vans Ford had actually done. And apparently even a prototype was stuck away in a warehouse that when they moved to Chrysler, they had access to. So Ford really did the heavy lifting, it feels like, for what became Chrysler minivans.
I've never seen these concepts before either. I think it's fun that Ford's releasing so many things now, or maybe I just never saw them. But I remember my father really lamenting this when, Chrysler really took off and had the minivan. He's like, no, Ford had that all developed. Lee had the whole team left and took the whole project with them. And of course, they were selling like hotcakes and we were trying to catch up with an Aerostar a few years later. So
And Aerostar was rear drive too, right? The Aerostar wasn't even front wheel drive, I don't think.
That's right. Rear wheel drive. You can get it with a stick shift, which makes it cool.
Yeah. I drove
I am a proud owner of that first Chrysler minivan. Technically the refresh, but the same platform, the same, the first minivan. It's not really true, but yeah. And I have to say, it really is a triumph. I mean, in so many ways, it is such a great vehicle. And I totally get why in the 80s and 90s, everyone was buying these things because they're so small. Like, here's a picture of mine on screen.
The packaging is so good on it, though. Like, it really is a big empty box after those front wheels, and then you can do whatever in there. It is extremely well packaged, and that's why these things work so well.
Well, if you're a normal human being, you commit to yourself when you're young that you will never drive a minivan no matter what happens in life. And then if you have more than 2 kids, if it happened like my family, we took a vacation. My wife took a vacation, rented a minivan because there was nothing else available, and went, oh, geez, this works. And
so much better.
So good that you can't pass it up if you got these kids and utility and need to do things, even though it's horrifyingly ugly and non-cool and all that kind of stuff. Although
are they really less cool than a modern SUV though? Is a RAV4 or a CRV are they any cooler than a modern minivan? And I just don't think they are. Like, get the damn minivan.
SUVs are the modern minivan,
right? And they don't do it as well. They're high. They
the sliding door
room inside. Yeah,
the sliding door is a big deal, especially in the city. Otherwise, you're just going to get door dings. You're going to have to leave notes on cars because your 8-year-old, you put a dent in, a Lexus. It's not worth it. Yeah. Get a minivan, sliding doors. I agree. Anyway, the problem with minivans is that once they're about 10 years old, they're completely useless because nobody wants a used minivan for their kids because it's not safe. But anyway, all right, moving on to the next story.
Yeah.
The average new car. This is a classic Torchinsky post.
Yeah.
How do you actually figure out what the average new car face looks like, Jason?
Okay, so whenever we would go to auto shows, I would get one of our photographers, in this case, Mercedes did it for us, to take as many pictures of the fronts of cars as possible. And then using Photoshop has the ability, you can layer these all together, and Photoshop will do the mathematical average of all the layers. And you can either do a mean or median, which is 2 different kinds of averages. But what this gives you is generally a sense of so basically the stuff that shows up over and over again will be more prominent. And as a result, you get an idea of what the general look of cars are right now. And I've been doing this. I did it in 2014, 2017, 2018, and then now. And you can see it has changed. And what we are looking at in 2022, I thought actually it looked a little bit like an old Jaguar, like one of those early 2000s Jaguar XKs a little bit to me. But we're back to a wide grille. Headlights have kind of moved up into the corners, still fairly rounded. Belt lines have gotten a little higher. It's interesting. It looks like when you just look at this average car, it looks like an average car, and it's interesting to see how it's changed. I'll do a similar.
Now, is this a car or does it no SUVs? Correct.
Yeah, I did this separate. These are just cars, sedans, sports cars, whatever. And I'm going to do a separate one for SUVs and trucks. And I bet we're going to see pretty big differences in SUVs and trucks because I bet we're going to get a lot more aggressive grille kind of treatments. But it's just an interesting exercise.
Like a Mercedes.
Well, and badges are prominent now again because we've seen a strong circular badge in the middle of the grill that a lot of companies are playing with. And I think part of that is to hide things like radar emitters and cameras, and the badge just becomes a convenient place to stuff that thing's in there without it looking weird. Yeah, it's interesting.
So average car looks average.
The average car looks average. There's the big shocker.
Here's the insight here at the Autopian Podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, we need to talk about some Airstreams, but to do that, we're going to have to bring on a man who has written the most popular post in Autopian history, Matt. You around, Matt?
Hey, everybody. I waved, which I realized does not work on a podcast. Hi, everybody.
We can describe it.
Nice.
Matt extended his arm and his hand flopped back and forth seductively. There you go.
I just want to, before we talk about Airstreams, I want to talk about family mobile since we're talking about minivans. Earlier on, the question was who remembers a Brat? And I remember a Brat because my parents owned, when I was taken home from the hospital in a Volkswagen Beetle, like a lot of kids. Back in the early 80s, and they thought it was not a good family car. And so somehow the family car they ended up with was a Subaru Brat.
That's good. Yeah,
And
that's a much wiser choice.
I mean, we lived on the beach, basically, or really close to the beach in southern Texas. And so it sort of made sense. And then they realized, like, okay, that was like I would sit in the middle between them, basically, or on a lap. And then they decided, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. And so the next move was an Isuzu Impulse because my parents are super weird.
Wow,
It's funny,
that's
I
great.
brought my kid back from the hospital in a VW Beetle, an original Beetle in 2010 also. So that's still a tradition. But we did not move to a Brat, which is, I would love to hear the conversation your parents were having when they decided, let's get something with, instead of 2 seats that could be dangerous with a back seat, let's just do something with just 1 seat instead.
No, I think
teach them how to hang on. They'll
I think
learn
it's-
to
yeah,
this-
survive.
they went to the dealer and they brought Matt and they were like, "What car should we own?" And the dealer said Brat, and that was that.
No,
Yeah,
there we go.
exactly. They said Brat for a Brat. I like the idea that my parents went to a dealer. There's no way that my parents rarely had money. So it was definitely like a friend or someone had to have had it. Like once I went home, I went to college and I borrowed their car because my car wasn't running so well, and my old Escort. And I came back and I was like, "Where's my car?" And they're like, "We traded it for house paint. Someone's going to paint the house." And they took the car.
Traded it for house paint.
Random trade.
That's like some gift of the Magi shit right there. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very O. Henry with my parents in cars. So anyways, we've moved on in life. No, Airstreams. Yeah. So, it's funny. I love RVs like a lot of people, and Mercedes is actually at the big RV trade show right now. And we'll be bringing back a bunch of really great posts since he was telling me all about it. And, we share an affinity for RVs and campers. And I have thankfully, by being a journalist, which is just a great auto journalist, which is just a great racket, I've had a chance to drive some of the kind of more interesting RVs. And I really like the Class B RVs, which Class Cs are, if you think about like a Ford Econoline with the bed over the top, the really big ones. Those are sort of Class Cs. Class A's are the like big, like tour bus style RVs, generally the big flat front, usually with an engine in the back, although not always. And then Class Bs are the more van-based ones that kind of keep the van shape. So like a Mercedes Sprinter or the Ram ProMaster are the 2 most common ones here in the US. And so I've driven these Airstreams. The Airstream, like the Airstream Interstates, they're Class Bs, which are based on Sprinters, are super, super nice, but they're also insanely expensive. Like they're like $150,000, $200,000, $220,000. And the problem is they're clearly designed for retirees, because they only ever have sleeping for 2, and they only ever have, like, sometimes they have a 3rd seat in them, but there's only sleeping for 2. It's like not ideal for someone with a family. But the
Big colostomy bag holders too in them.
Colostomy bag holders,
Oxygen tanks. Yeah.
16 places for golf bags, a thing for a rascal. So I was like,
originals dispenser. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. And so I was like, oh, I would never, like, I love it, but I would never pay that much money. But then on the lower end of the market for some of the RV stuff, they're not really that well built. I was like, I wish Airstream would build like they do in Europe, like just a Ram ProMaster one that's got 2 seats in the front, a little bench in the back, and then a pop-up tent so you can toss the kids up in the tent. Like that's like seems like the ideal format. So they finally came out with it. They call it the Range Line, and I keep calling it the Ridge Line, and I had to fix the post a couple times, but it's called the Range Line, and it's nice. Now it's expensive, right? It's $140,000, but compared to other cars in the class, it's either other RVs in the class, it's actually a really fantastic deal. I think the bathroom's in a nice spot. Like it does kind of everything that, like, if you're just going to turnkey buy an RV for traveling, it's kind of just in the sweet Goldilocks zone, sweet spot of a lot of things. And then the other really nice feature about this is there's no propane tank. I really don't like propane tanks in RVs. They're fine, but it's not a great solution. And these actually use just a battery pack for power, and for heating, instead of having a hot water tank, it has instantaneous heat, so that there's just a little generator, and it heats up. And then there's actually tubing that runs through the vehicle to send heat that way, radiated heat through the van, which is pretty efficient. So just a lot of really cool little neat things in one kind of expensive RV. So,
and you can drive it, and it's not so big that driving it is an ass pain. Like, you could actually just drive it to get groceries if you had to, and it's not an ordeal. Because I have like a big Class B, and you don't want to drive it anywhere if you don't have to. Yeah.
No, you have to like tow a car. You see a lot of RVs now towing cars. Like, you don't want to tow a car. Like, it's no fun. No. So this you can, having driven a few of these, you can drive them to the campsite and then drive them somewhere else if you want to. And this, because it's front wheel drive, which is the nice thing about the ProMasters, is you get a really low flat floor and a lot of room, similar to the minivan discussion. Like, you actually have a lot more room with these front engine ones, although the Mercedes ones are a little bit nicer to drive, admittedly, and the Transits are a little bit nicer to drive. But anyways, RVs, I love RVs. I could do this for like 6 hours.
Love RVs.
Oh man,
I mean, every story we read about RVs, people seem to just love reading about them. They love. I assume it's partly kind of the adventurous nature. It's kind of similar to why people love overlanding, and it seems like there's just a lot of potential for someone to offer from the factory some sort of like VW California type thing. It seems like someone's leaving something on the table. What do you think about that, Beau? Beau, do you think that's an area where there's demand that maybe is worth filling?
Oh, this is a sore spot for me.
Why is that?
Oh, well, we saw the Transit coming. Actually, Jason, that's how we met, is we did Transit Skyliner.
I remember that. That's a fine machine. Yeah.
Concept as this jetless, like limo type vehicle. But we had actually, ironically, partnered with the old CEO of Airstream. And when the Transit first came out, we were working on packaging to create exactly what I'm looking at here. Maybe not exactly, because it was a little bit of a different design. But we had gone through the entire packaging, really coming up with creative ideas. And all set to go, and we were trying to get the prototypes built, and we kind of got screwed over by one company that was going to build it, and it was like one fiasco after another, so we never got it built. So not only do I fully believe in this, but we were invested in it. We used to build motorhomes actually back in the 80s. We were the largest motorhome manufacturer. Actually, my family started a motorhome company. So to me, and we were famous for kind of starting the whole conversion van industry at Galpin, because that's kind of like our core DNA. So we were going to bring all that together and build this Transit van like what I'm looking at today, and it just never made it. So of course I believe in it. I love RVs. I love this whole concept. The way that they package things that you could actually drive in your home, live in this little area, it forces you to be outdoors and enjoy things. But when you got to be inside and take a quick shower, and shave, you can do it, right away. It's comfortable to sleep in. They're the best. I'm heartbroken, but I'm happy that somebody's building it.
There is no greater luxury than driving and then just being able to pull over and take a comfortable shit right there in your car.
Yes.
It really is.
Driving.
Or
Jason and I are planning on getting the world land speed record for the fastest dump taken. Yeah. But anyway, that's irrelevant.
Don't give it away. Someone's gonna break it before we get there.
we actually welcome the challenge.
Yeah.
All right. It's time to move on to the mailbag, which is going to be presented by Matt Hardigree.
Right, I'm sponsoring Mailbag today.
That's right. Matt,
listener's choice.
We asked a bunch of readers for questions, and what did they come up with, Matt?
We got some good stuff here. So this one, I think, David, everyone should have responses for this. So this is from Eric Ortiz on Twitter. He asked, I want to free up some space in my XJ, or assuming Jeep XJ, So I'm considering a tire carrier. Some rear bumpers with tire carriers look good, but they can be pretty heavy. A hitch-mounted tire carrier could be a lighter route. Since space is only an issue for road trips, what would you guys do? Starting with David.
David.
If you're road tripping, you definitely do need a spare. I'm actually pro donut. Unless you're going off-roading, I'm actually pro donut spare because I think they're funny and they take less space. But assuming you don't like donuts, then don't put it on the roof. A lot of Jeep people will just throw the tire on the roof. That's not a good solution. It's an aero drag problem. It's a center of gravity problem. It's an accessibility problem. It's just don't do it. Get some kind of actually what you should do is get the factory rear spare tire carrier, which is hen's teeth, extremely rare. You may never find one, but if you do, it's like this cool tubular thing that comes off the bumper and it looks right. So just search long and far for this factory XJ tire carrier. That's the answer.
It swings out and then you can lift the tailgate, right?
That's exactly right. Yep.
I have an alternate solution that I just think looks cool and is hardly ever done on XJs. And this was big on Land Rovers, and that's the hood mount spare, which I think like Aero, you're going to have a problem, but I do think it has a cool look about it. Like I don't know depends on how tall your tire is also, but I just think hood spare is cool looking. Not super practical. If you have to lift that hood, you're going to have to take the tire off because it'll be a pain in the ass, but nobody's doing it. And I think it looks cool. What else you did? You think no, David? David's shaking his head.
That's not the end, but that's what I need.
Well, I got nothing here. What else we got?
All right. So here's a question from Walter McGinnis on Twitter. Fellas, talk to me about when I'll know it's time to sell a vehicle I just use as an appliance for transportation. What am I watching out for? What milestones should I not pass before the value plummets to DT noticing it? Assume I have other fun vehicles, so no sentimentality. Just the Subaru Forester of their discontent. What are they?
So when they should sell it? Like at what point?
I have one strange answer, and then I'll see what you guys think as well. The market is still insane right now. There is still trade-in values, car values are the highest, still in history. They've come down a little bit, but it is an unusual time in the car business right now. So if you got an extra car that you don't need, that's an appliance, now's the time to sell it. But the key issue is the replacement of it. So if you can replace something, right now is an unusual time to sell an automobile. With all they're doing to crack down on this economy, it's going to start. Values are going to come down on used cars. So I see used cars starting to creep down in value. So I don't see them going up again anytime soon. So I think we're going to start seeing the market continue to go down on used cars. Used cars are going to become somewhat affordable again. Late model used cars are going to continue to rise in value, in my opinion, because we have no off-lease cars. So we're going to have a shortage of newer used vehicles for years. But older used vehicles, I believe the values are going to start coming down on. Now, as far as when a value loses, or when a car loses its most value, driving off the lot and those things, well, we used to have rules that applied, but everything's out the window right now. It is a completely new world and a new market. So I think new vehicles are going to start holding their values for a little bit longer period of time, as well as recently new vehicles. So anything 2018, 19 should actually hold their values, and 20, 21, 22 vehicles will hold their values, I think, pretty strong for the near future, unless something really goes crazy in the economy. But the older used cars, I believe, are going to start tapering down. So that's my big picture economic without the individual, okay, here's what a car normally does on a depreciation scale. So anyway, that's my industry outlook perspective.
And you think 2018 is kind of the cutoff? Before 2018, values will start going down. Like what counts as like a newer?
I picked that a little bit out of the blue, and it's probably closer to 2019, certainly 2020. 2020 is when we started getting a true shortage. So 2020, 21, 22, and probably half of 23 will be very short. So we're a huge millions of vehicles that normally would be in the used car market that won't be there. Millions. That's a lot. So there's going to be that shortage, and certainly from 2020 on. But 2019, where we still had good production, and 2018, I think those values will come down some, but not as strong as maybe the older ones. So that's my opinion.
My junkers are going to start losing their value. I'm a little concerned about that.
You what?
So my older cars are going to start losing their value. Huh? I need to get rid of them ASAP.
None of your cars, yes, you do, but none of your cars had value. That's the problem.
Yes.
You got to start somewhere. You can't start at $5.
You know what was really interesting? I remember like when things were really going nuts, that even the like completely wrecked vehicles from like, you know, the body shops were buying, those skyrocketed in value. It's like nothing in the market was a deal anymore. And it's, you know, even junker cars, you know, went up 40%. So yeah, maybe there is something there, David. I don't know. So yeah, instead of you know, $100, you could get 110.
Heck yeah, be rich.
Wow.
All right, what else we got, Matt?
All right, from Palmetto Crafter on Twitter. If you could do it,
I don't know if I answered that question, by the way.
That's a fantastic. That's a fantastic answer.
That was the answer. If anybody's wondering,
I have nothing to add to that.
That's a great answer.
No notes.
He knows.
If you could do, this is from Palmetto Crafter. If you could do an epic group cross-country trip, where would you go and what vehicle would you choose? Starting with Jason.
Cross-country in America, I guess you mean?
Yeah, presumably in America.
What vehicle would I would want, if it's going to be an epic cross-country trip, I want it
group cross-country trip.
Group cross-country. So I got to pick vehicles for everyone?
Either you pick vehicles for everyone or you're all in one vehicle.
I think it's one vehicle with a bunch of people in it.
One vehicle, but so a lot of people to fit in a vehicle. Okay, I would want something weird and big and roomy. You know, like default answer would be like a VW bus, but that's too played out. But you know what I've always wanted to drive? Beau actually has one. A DKW Schnelllaster, the DKW microbus thing. It's a 3-cylinder, 2-stroke vehicle, plenty of room inside, lots of windows, and I bet that thing is entertaining to drive. So I would do a Schnelllaster. I bet I could fit 6 to 8 people happily in one of those things. I think we'd be going back roads because I doubt that thing will hold more than 50 miles an hour. But I bet we could have a fantastic time in a Schnelllaster, mixing the oil and the gas for the 2-stroke, and it's, you know, I don't think there's carpet in there, so we can just hose it out when we need to. I feel like I want to go in a Schnelllaster. I think that's what I'm going to pick.
And it'd be a cross country trip like the Oregon Trail. Just it would take months to do.
Tedious and long, and the weird smoky exhaust, we'd all smell ridiculous afterwards. Yeah, I think a Schnelllaster is the right choice for this one.
Perfect. David.
Depends. If it's 3 people, we'll say it's 3 people as a group, then I think I want something with a bench seat so we can
keep in mind all the groupies we're going to be picking up as we cross country, because there's going to be a lot.
Nah, it's gonna be 3 of us. So it'll have to be a bench seat so that we can hang out like buds, three wide.
Okay, I like this idea. I know I'm gonna get stuck in the middle too because I'm the shortest, but keep going.
Oh, you absolutely are gonna be right next to the gear shift.
Yeah, all right, fantastic. Go ahead.
Let's see. I think it would be it depends on the country, but I'm thinking like I think your old Ford truck would be great, Jason. Like really? Just an F truck. Because here's the thing. That thing could break down in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, and just go to the local farm store and they have the parts for it. We're at least going to make the trip in that. And everyone's going to love that. No one hates a late 80s Ford F-150 with a bench seat and a long bed. It's the most lovable car in every environment. Anyway, that's my answer.
All right. I mean, you're not wrong. You can get parts for that thing in a grocery store. So yeah, I believe that. Okay.
Well, I would have a completely different take on everything.
Yeah.
So,
not.
you know, I guess I'm an old man with a bad back now, or at least that's how I feel. And I'm just going, man, that sounds very painful for a long trip. Are we allowed to take that Airstream van that we just,
yeah, that's a good call.
I would 100% take that.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to pull over and do whatever I need to do. I want to be able to sleep on the road, because you asked also where would you go? And the answer is it really doesn't matter, because it would be about the journey, not the destination. So I would want to be as comfortable as possible on the road. And honestly, what I would do is, and I probably got the idea from John Lasseter, but he did a trip before he made cars just on Route 66 to go to all the old places that used to exist that the highway bypassed when they built it. So to go through and see all the weird roadside things that I've heard about all my life. I want to see the largest ball of string.
Yeah.
I want to see the world's largest peach, or whatever weird sideshow kind of things. That mystery spot. I never knew what that mystery spot is. What is that mystery spot that everyone used to talk about? That's where I want to go. Do those weird things along Route 66, not worry about where we're going or when we're going to be there, but just enjoy the journey and not worry about the destination.
That sounds lovely. I kind of made it, when I crossed from LA to move out here, I bought an old 77 Dodge RV. And well, I had to do all the driving because my wife refused. But my wife and kid were basically in a living room while we were driving, and they were like playing Wii and eating pizza rolls. And it is a fantastic way to make a journey. You're absolutely right about that. Yeah.
I'm going to borrow that range line and just come visit y'all. That's my next trip to LA. I'm just going to borrow that thing and then just drive all the way down and pick you up, and you guys can all drive back. I'll just be the driver. You guys can just sit back and shit and eat. It'll be great. Pizza rolls also seem perfect. This is a good one for our friend Untitled Car Show. Fiero, great car or greatest car?
Great car or greatest?
E6.
Yeah, because they changed a lot in the two generations.
Ones, I think, are greatest car. Actually, you know what? Yeah, the answer is greatest car, because the Fiero brought a mid-engine platform to the masses. A friend of mine in Detroit,
MR2.
He just put a big, sure, but not to the same degree. I mean,
okay,
Fiero you can buy for $800. Slap a freaking Chevy small block in it, and you have a mid-engine like freaking firecracker. It's awesome.
Yeah. And that front end, it was just the transverse front engine from all the other compacts they made, right? Like they didn't even bother changing anything, I think.
The engine, I think it started with did it not have an Iron Duke in it to begin with?
I think it may have.
Yeah.
And then it went to the 2.8
Quad 4.
I remember when I ran Lemons, the people who had the paddock next to us were running a Fiero, and the one thing about it that I found difficult was that to get to anything, they basically had to take the entire car apart. You had to drop the engine to get to anything because it's so crammed there. But it is at the same time a fantastic little mid-engine car, and where else you can get a dirt cheap mid-engine car? I agree with David on that one.
All right, so we're gonna do. Greatest car. That's the answer. All right, we're gonna do some quick, real quick to get through this. We have a few more. We're gonna do the lightning round from our buddy Ash, who works at Geely or maybe Lincoln Co. Over in China. How did the name Autopian come to be, and who smells the nicest out of the three of you?
Probably Beau for both.
Definitely Beau on the smelling nice part.
And it was Beau's idea. That was your name, right, Beau?
It was. I grew up going to Disneyland and driving the Autopia, and it really means the ultimate fantasy of driving. And I thought to put that into a term to personalize it for all of us. To be an Autopian means that we strive for a perfect automotive society. Maybe it's not doable because it's a vision of perfection. But I think that's what the ideal was to look at automotive culture across the spectrum, and anyone that's into any type of automobile that has a love and a passion for it, to me, is an Autopian. And if we can bring everyone's passions together, so no matter what kind of car you love, it could be, we all have very different tastes, from exotic to crappy to functional, the truck to RVs and everything in between. But if you have a love for it, to me, you're an Autopian. So that's what it's creating, this world where all of us can enjoy the thing that we love the most and not judge one another, because we all doesn't matter which one we love, as long as we love the automobile, we're an Autopian. So that's where it came from.
A note for the editor: let's put some rising music in the background of Beau's speech there. Maybe the national anthem, I think, would be great.
That was amazing. I'm not going to ask any more questions. We're going to end on that because that is beautiful.
Achingly beautiful. And as far as the smelling part though goes, it's again probably Beau again, although. My wife does occasionally buy me good cologne that I will wear occasionally, but I can't claim I always smell good by any means.
I'm going with Torch on this one, at least for today.
No, there we all
go. We kind of know where David falls. I love you, David,
but no one thinks David.
You're working hard.
Well, it depends on what you like to smell. I mean,
I actually like the smell of gasoline, so
I do too.
Might smell good.
Maybe it is David.
Maybe let's give it to David. What the hell?
Yeah, fast orange. He smells on a good day. He smells like fast orange.
That's true.
We're going with David.
All right, yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Oh, one bit of Autopian name trivia: the logo was inspired in the first versions from the Studebaker Avanti badge. So there's another little bit of something fun.
Amazing. That's cool. Well, I think that's it for Mailbag. Like and subscribe.
Please, yes.
Leave us nice reviews on
Matt.
On Apple Podcast. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep. Well, that's it for this episode of the Autopian Podcast. Matt may have mentioned like and subscribe.
Please do. And good reviews. Those are important. If you like what we're doing and want us to keep doing it, say nice things so other people scrolling through will see it and believe it and try it out, because that's important.
Or if you hate it, tweet at Jason and say,
tell me. That's the best way. Tell me why you hate. I'll give you my home address, and you can just send me an angry letter or a dog turd in a shoebox. Either way. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.